Eric Frost Hour podcast, season 1, episode 1. We don't know where this is going. We have big goals in mind, but bear with us as we break into the podcast world. We are a sports-based podcast where we are going to talk 99% sports, but you never know what could come of our conversations. So, Eric, where do we begin? I think we begin with the review of Game 5, Warriors with the sneaky W.
Yeah,
Thought?
unless we have anything in the 1% that you referenced, I think we can go ahead and begin with Game 5. So, yeah, I watched probably the latter half of the game, so I didn't get home until about 9:30. So maybe Cody, you can recap the first half, and then I'll touch on the second half when we get there.
Well, as expected, Durant comes back, makes a quick impact. Early second quarter, goes out with an injury. And, I'm getting texts from my friends. Now that I'm a local San Franciscoan, people are giving me shit for being on the bandwagon. And they're like, oh, game's over. But they forgot that they still have Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and we obviously can't forget Quinn Cook. And, they're fine without Durant. And
Even though Quinn Cook played terribly the past few games,
he has, but he didn't let that get to him. He's kind of like a Brooks Koepka in a
he
way,
did so
to
resilient,
where
so resilient.
he's resilient. He doesn't let the pressure get to him, and he steps up in big moments. And what he did tonight, and he made a big three where he takes a shot and Toronto is probably jumping for joy, and he buries it. And that's what Duke players do. It's plain and simple. But the first half was dominated by the Warriors, even without Durant. And once he goes out, there's some lunatic in the first row is waving at Durant like he's happy that he's injured. That's justice served. You don't cheer for a player getting injured. It's just not what you do. And it wouldn't surprise me if that guy got in a car accident driving home. It's karma. I mean, honestly, I've never in my life been happy for a player getting injured. And this guy stood up, waving at Durant. He was the happiest person on the planet when Durant got hurt. And there's no place for that in sports. And I don't know how you feel about that.
Especially when it's something that could be an Achilles injury. It doesn't look like it's that serious, but given the nature of the injury and the potential harm that could do him, I have to agree. There's no place in sports. Not as bad as the guy shoving Lowry. Let's get that out of the way, but still unacceptable.
No, it's completely unacceptable. And you know what? The Warriors were in a tough spot going game 5 back to Toronto. And I think every person in Toronto thought it was going to be over tonight. And the Warriors had a 14-point lead in the second half. The Raptors went on, I think, an 8-0 or a 10-0 run. And then the next thing you know, the Raptors had a 6-point lead with a few minutes to go. And quite honestly, I thought the game was over. And you know what? The Warriors did what the Warriors do. And they stayed patient. They do what they normally do, and they make big shots and come out with a W. And we're going to Game 6, back officially the last game in Oracle Arena in Oakland, California. It's going to be sad, I have to say. I mean, I've been here for 2 months, and I might shed a tear or two.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of heartbreak for you. You have such deep roots out there, and can totally feel for the emotional wear and tear that this is going to do on you. I do think there were some defensive breakdowns by the Warriors, though, or the Raptors, excuse me. I think Van Fleet, while he was great on the offensive end, clearly on the defensive end there were some breakdowns, and the Warriors did get some good shots, but it didn't help that they were flailing at the pump fakes when Klay put up those. So, nonetheless, like you said, some big shots by the Warriors, what you would expect, but I put this more as Toronto lost the game than the Warriors winning it at the end, but maybe a little bit of both.
All right, so enough about Game 5. Let's look forward to Game 6, which don't know if you're aware, but Game 6 isn't until Thursday. I mean,
Oh boy.
what is this? Like, they don't need. I get the NHL is playing on Wednesday night. They don't want to have conflict of schedules. I get that. It's Game 7. It's a big game, but come on, these guys don't need 3 nights of rest. It's but that aside, let's look to Game 6. What are we looking for? What's your prediction?
Yeah, I don't think I even need to have a solid prediction or look into the crystal ball here. The Warriors are going to win. They're going back to Oracle, like you said, the last game at home. I think it's Warriors by 8 to 10. I think they're going to go back to Toronto for Game 7, and it's going to be a battle to the end. So exactly what the NBA wants, and yeah, that's what we're going to see.
You heard it here first. The No Name podcast says go all in on the Warriors minus, well, not more than 10, but let's just say the line is going to be minus 4.5 to 6.5. Go big on the Warriors. They're not going to lose their last game or play. It's just
No,
it's
no,
not going to happen.
that's an easy call. I think it could go. I think it could go as high as 6.5 or 7 points. Um, this is a pretty emotional letdown for the Raptors, and I just
Oh,
don't
this was
see.
this was a demoralizing loss. I mean, the Raptors were, and I think all of Toronto were banking on winning tonight and losing the game tonight. I think they're sort of anticipating a game 7, and the Raptors have not been in that position before, and the Warriors have.
No, and Lowry looked like he basically crapped his pants on the last three. So uh, I'm not exactly sure what type of offensive set they were trying to run, but it wasn't even within the realm of logical.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be interesting to say the least. So
No, it'll be good.
it will be, and you know what? Whoever you're cheering for, whatever team you're supportive of, if you like basketball, if you cheer for the Warriors or Raptors, it doesn't matter. You want Game 7. I mean, that's
No,
what people live for,
for sure.
and it's there's nothing better than the phrase Game 7, and everything's on the line, and so even if you're a neutral fan, you probably are cheering for the Warriors subconsciously just to get to a Game 7.
Yeah, and I think if they would have won tonight, it would have felt a little odd, anyways. Warriors beating or losing to the Raptors 4-1, it just didn't seem right. So to me, I'm okay with it. Extending the series, and it just would have been a very odd scenario having the Raptors beat the Warriors. Almost sweeping them.
So kind of piggybacking off of that, do you think that the NBA is fixed in that sense? Does the NBA have enough control to where they're saying, listen, we can't afford to only have 5 games in the NBA finals. The ratings have been so down from the last 4 or 5 years without LeBron. Do we have to force a game 6 and probably a game 7 just to kind of make up for the loss that we've suffered in the first 4 games?
I think the NBA certainly wants that, but I'm not sure. Looking at tonight's game, if you could have manufactured that ending, I think that'd be pretty incredible if the NBA had their
That's
hand in
true.
that.
Yeah, that's hard to argue
So
against. I mean, because if he makes a shot, the series is over.
yeah,
But he didn't, and the Warriors are moving on. And I know you're not happy about that. But you know what?
yeah,
LeBron is on vacation somewhere playing in the pool with his kids. I'm sure he's enjoying himself.
he is. And when Anthony Davis, is a Laker next year, we'll be talking about the finals next year with
Wow.
LeBron versus
Anthony
Curry.
Davis to the Lakers. Is that your bold prediction?
I think it's the only option.
Wow.
I don't think anything else really solves the problem. So that's my hopeful prediction, and I'm sticking to it.
What about Kyrie? Does Kyrie have a chance?
Yeah, I mean, maybe all three of them. You never know. But I think they'd have to do a lot of persuading and kind of take an all-in approach. So it'll be interesting to see what the Lakers organization given the fact that Magic Johnson just left and Jeannie Buss. I don't know what they're doing out there. So it's a comedy of errors.
I mean, it's to put it lightly, the Lakers are in shambles.
No, it's a joke.
Yeah, but that's for another podcast. Let's move on to more impressive feats,
Right.
to say the least. Rafael Nadal. I mean, what can you say about the guy? I mean, the guy has won in
12. Is it 12?
This isn't even like comprehensible, but Rafael Nadal won his first French Open 14 years ago. I believe he was 18 years old.
18 or 19, yeah.
He has won 12 French Opens since that day. That is, there has never in the history of sports ever been anyone as dominant as Rafael Nadal at a single venue, on a single surface, whatever you want to call it. It's uncanny what he's done. And it's Roger Federer is obviously kind of, I don't want to say cemented, but he's sort of established himself as the greatest of all time. But man, Nadal is making his case for being the greatest of all time. And I know you have an opinion on this.
No, I think he is. I think interestingly enough, if you look at Roger Federer, he's got 7 Wimbledons. So we know that he's also been, fairly dominant on a couple of courts. He's won 7 Wimbledons and I believe 6 Australian Opens. The thing about Federer that I think separates him in the conversation right now is kind of the diversity of his championships. 6 Australians, yes, only 1 French, 7 Wimbledons, 5 U.S. Opens. Nadal has 12, 1 Australian Open, 2 Wimbledons, and 3 U.S. Opens. I think if Nadal can get 1 or 2 more Australians, maybe 1 Wimbledon, 1 U.S. Open, and if he gets to that 20 mark, I think there's definitely a case to be made. Of course, there's a case today, some could argue, but until he is able to get a couple more of those, I can't yet put him above Federer. But it's certainly amazing that we're able to watch 3 of the greatest players to ever play the game, and for Rafael Nadal, for me, the most exciting one to watch. But anyways, I still think Roger is up there on his own right now.
And then just I woke up at 5:30 on Sunday morning to watch the finals, and team who I was fortunate enough to watch practice last year in Cincinnati, and the kid is a good player, and he's playing as well as anybody right now. He beats Djokovic, and he's up against now. I get there's the rain delays, and you could say there's fatigue was a factor in the finals, but teams in his mid-20s and Nadal's in his mid-30s. There's almost a 10-year gap between the two, and even after the match, someone asked about fatigue, and he goes, "Listen, this is the finals of the Roland Garros, and fatigue isn't an issue because there's enough adrenaline where you can fight through that." And team showed some life, wins the second set, and as an average fan, you're kind of like, "Oh, okay, well, this is interesting. It's 1-1. Now it's sort of a best of 3 match." And Nadal wins 6-1, 6-1, and it wasn't even close. And Nadal is just relentless. And as soon as you thought team was, on his game, Nadal just shuts him down. It's pretty remarkable to see how dominant he is. 'Cause, I mean, it's as good as Federer is, and as good as he's been over the past 15 years, we'll say, he has never been even close to Nadal's level as dominant on a single surface like Nadal is. And I don't even understand how it's possible. I mean, he gets every ball, and it's even the balls that you're like, ooh, I don't think he's going to get to, and then he hits a winner.
Yeah. Yeah, Clay. I don't understand Clay enough to understand how he can be that good on Clay. I understand he has the ability to slide a little better than some other players. I think he grew up on this type of court, so obviously his play is kind of conducive to this style. But I think they mentioned it the other day. Who was the greatest court player of all time? Was it Rod Laver, who was the clay court king? I can't remember who they mentioned, but no one I think in history of tennis has come close to this type of dominance on a single surface. And
No,
I don't think that we'll ever see 12 again. I put my money on it.
not in our lifetime. Maybe we'll see 12, but not 12 in 14 years. I mean,
No,
they were saying Nadal has won 5 in a row, 4 in a row, and 3 in a row.
that's ridiculous.
That's how he's gotten 12. And it's clay is obviously a much slower surface than grass. And so you have a little bit more time to react, but the ball bounces a little bit slower. And I'm not enough of a tennis guru to understand what that means, but that obviously plays in Nadal's favor. He gets to every ball, and I think maybe it's the spin he hits on the ball, how heavy his forehands and backhands are, and how good he is at drop shots, and how good he is at reacting to drop shots. I don't know. Regardless, Nadal is indisputably and probably for as long as I can foresee, he is the greatest clay court player in the history of the world and will be probably for a long time.
Yeah, and I think there was a silly record that they mentioned in the day. Is he 91-2 at
He's 90. He's nine. He's 93-2 at the
93
French Open, and so if he plays next year and he wins, he will be 102 at the French Open.
Yeah, I mean that's just not. I don't understand who would ever beat that.
There's not
record.
even a there's not even a comparison in sports that I think would even come close. I mean, you look at Tiger Woods, who's someone who is dominant, or a Muhammad Ali, or a Michael Phelps, even, and the numbers are just outrageous. I mean, 102. That's what is that? A 98 point whatever percent winning percentage.
No, it's unprecedented. I don't think we'll ever see it
It is.
again.
No, it really is, and it's you know our parents were able to watch Michael Jordan, and they were able to watch guys like Arthur Ashe and John McEnroe, and we were sort of younger when Pete Sampras was playing, but
Yeah.
they saw these great guys that were or Mark Spitz, the guy that won 7 golds?
Yeah.
And that's cool to see, but I don't think even them could say they've ever seen someone quite like Rafael Nadal
No,
on
and McEnroe said it the other night. I don't even think Sampras is in the conversation anymore.
No, I mean
you don't even hear about Pete Sampras.
No, and in this gen, I think Pete Sampras before Nadal and Federer was leading Grand Slams. I think he has 14.
Yeah.
And now in this era, we've got 3 guys that have passed him. I mean, that's just like that's unbelievable. I mean, it's like it'd be like in the NBA, 3 guys being compared to Michael Jordan. That's never going to happen.
No, I agree.
All right, so we digress, and as we said at the beginning, this is an all sports podcast. And in case you're wondering, we have no notes. We're not online. These are stats that we are recalling from memory. And if you hear a cricket in the background, it's not from me. It's from Eric. He's in Dallas. That's where crickets reside.
Apologies.
I don't know what to say. He has 2 kids. He has to sort of exclude himself for the evening to not wake up the children. But we move forward, and I think the next topic of discussion that for some people could be meaningless, but for the two of us, it means a lot, and it's golf. And I think we first briefly discuss the RBC Canadian Open. Um, you know, we're both in a one and done league, and how that works is you pick one player every week, and once you pick them, you cannot pick them again for the remainder of the season. We had a tough start to the season. We picked a lot of what we thought were solid picks, and they did not perform up to standards. But recently we've made a little charge. We picked Brooks Koepka. We've picked who do we pick after Brooks Koepka? I can't recall. We picked someone that finished third. Jordan Spieth. Jordan
Yeah, Spieth,
Spieth. He
yeah.
finished third. We picked Finau. That was a bogey.
Disappointing, but
Missed
as
the
I
cut.
said, he's not going to win a tournament this year, so I should have never picked him.
No, you're right. You're right. But Kuchar tied for fourth. Can't complain.
Yeah.
And I mean, Kuchar was leading going into the last round. We were in great position, and you know, like you said, there's one guy you're worried about, and it's Rory. And if we've said this the whole season, if Rory is on his game,
Game over.
it's game over. It's game over. I would take when Rory is on. I honestly think I would take him over any person in the world. I would take him over Brooks. I'll take him over Dustin. I'll take him over Tiger. Anybody. I mean, the guy shot, I think, 64-61 on the weekend
Yep.
and wins by what, 7 or 6?
Yeah.
And
-22 or -21.
20, yeah. And it's obviously it's not quite to the Nadal comparison, but man, when he is on, it's everyone's playing for second.
Well, keep in mind, a birdie on the last would have got him a 59, and he ended up bogeying the 18th. So Rory, he almost shot a 59 in the fourth round, given the hardest pin locations when the course is supposed to be at its toughest. And we've seen high scores in the Canadian in the past. I think Dustin Johnson got up to -20 or 21 last year. I can't remember as the defending champion, but you already touched on it. Rory turned on the afterburners. Kuchar just didn't have it the last day, unfortunately. No one had it. And, if you're going to lose to someone, hey, it's Rory McIlroy. And unfortunately, we can only pick him once. We already burned him. And now it's on to the Open. So exciting week. And can't wait to see what this week has in store for us.
Yeah, so obviously, quick review of the Canadian Open. Not many people care. I'm not sure anyone's even listening to this, but if you are, you're much more intrigued about the U.S. Open. Going back to Pebble Beach, reigning champion, the one and only Graham freaking McDowell. I mean, could you ask for a better reigning champion than Graham McDowell?
No, absolutely not. And didn't realize that he was the former champion at Pebble until about last week. So
yeah, I mean, the guy's a legend.
Oh, and he's playing well. He's playing very well right now.
And side note, Graham McDowell, his hometown is in Ireland, where they're playing the British Open at Royal Portrush.
Yes.
Graham McDowell holds a 25 footer for par on the 72nd hole at the Canadian Open to qualify for the British Open. I mean, that's a story in itself. I mean, he even addressed it before the week, and he was very, very open about it and just saying how, you know what, if I play well, I'll qualify, and if I don't, I won't. And that's what it is. Well, he played well, and he makes a big putt in the last hole, and he qualifies for the British Open. Going to Royal Portrush, sleeper pick. You heard it here first. Graham McDowell, top 5 British Open. Are you there?
Sure. So, okay, yeah, Graham McDowell. I think it's going to be an interesting week. Let's start with maybe some of the stuff we're seeing already. You mentioned to me earlier the Patrick Cantley videos, and I'm not sure what to make of them at this point. They seem a little bit silly, a little bit, as you mentioned, critical of the USGA. Some people are joking that that's the fastest that Cantley's ever played on these videos because he is a profoundly slow player. But maybe just start there. What are your thoughts on these videos and maybe just the explosion of like social media, like on the PGA Tour? Like what's going on?
So to our all of our viewers out there, I in my past life I was a professional golfer, and I've played with quite a few of these guys that are on TV now, and I I was fortunate enough to compete against them, play in the same groups with them, and I was chasing my dream just with them, and I didn't get my break, but that's besides the point. I've moved on, and I'm now recording podcasts in my one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco.
Fantastic.
Yes, and the thing with the Patrick Cantley video that bothers me is it's the U.S. Open, and there's long grass. The rough is high. It's obvious. You don't need to post a video showing that the rough is high. In my opinion, it's a indirect way of complaining about the course setup. There's a back left pin. I don't even know what hole he was on, but there's a pin back left or middle left, wherever it was, and he paces it off. It's like 6 or 7 paces. He drops his ball in the rough, and his ball disappears. I get it. The USGA sets up the courses extremely difficult, but you don't need to be posting videos of the rough. I mean, I was so high on Patrick Cantley going into this week, almost enough to where I would pick him in our one and done league. But after seeing that, I think he's mentally weak. I don't think he's in the right place. He's worried about hitting it long and left on so and so hole, and he's going to hit bad shots because of it. And inevitably, he's going to finish between 25th and 45th. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think that's a solid prediction, and as you said, it just kind of shows where his head is at. The USGA always makes the courses difficult. This is not a new thing. So to be sending out a video stating the obvious, I'm just not sure where he was going. That being said, I do think his odds are decent. He's at 15 or 16 to 1 last time I checked. People will pick him this week, whether it's in their pools or DraftKings or what have you. But I think he'll be one of the guys that are picked outside of the DJs and the Brooks and Tigers. But anyone else stick out for you as far as potential winners
Well,
this week?
you just mentioned three pretty prolific names,
Right,
one
right.
of them being Brooks Koepka. And what he's done in the past 2 seasons is really unbelievable. Um, he's won back-to-back U.S. Opens and PGAs. No one in the history of golf ever has won back-to-back PGAs and U.S. Opens in the same years, ever. And I guess my first question would be, can Brooks win a third U.S. Open in a row?
My prediction, my head says yes, he can, and that's for obvious reasons that you've just stated. I don't think anyone would question, the caliber of his play at this point or what majors do for his psyche. My gut tells me he will not win this week, and my logic is simply this: that Pebble Beach is a place that where experience and knowing the course pays off. And the U.S. Open is sort of a wonky event. It's going to play very difficult. I just think that Pebble is one of those places where a Phil Mickelson or a Webb Simpson or a Tiger, someone that's played there several times and has the experience will flourish this week. And who knows? I could be wrong, but my head is telling me that Brooks Koepka could maybe have a top 10, top 20, but I don't think he's going to win this week.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. I think, like you said, Pebble has shown to produce winners that have had experience, and I know Graham McDowell might be an exception, but you look at Phil; he's won the Pebble Beach Pro-Am 5 times, and Tiger obviously has played well there multiple times, but I'm not 100% sure. But Brooks has, from my knowledge, has very little experience playing Pebble Beach, and I get that it's not a very long course, but I think that works against him because when he's able to hit driver on a number of holes, it gives him a serious advantage because he drives it really well and drives it straight and long. This week, he might hit 4 or 5 drivers a day, and I think that gives an advantage to Tiger. I think it gives an advantage to Phil. I think it gives an advantage to really – it almost allows everybody in the field to have a chance, because if it's just hit driver every hole, then you can just cancel out probably 100+ guys that have no chance.
Right.
And so I think that is an interesting segment to our next player, who I think is an interesting pick is Phil Mickelson. He's finished second 6 times in majors. I think Jack Nicklaus is the only person to have more second or runner-up finishes in majors. What do you think of Phil this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think you already said it. He won the Pro-Am earlier this year. We picked Jason Day in that event, if I recall correctly. We finished runner-up to Phil, and he proved me wrong there. He continues to prove me wrong. He still has definitely the game. He definitely hits the ball far enough still. He's still accurate enough. And again, there seems to be some sort of a relationship that he has with this course, but I'm definitely not going to count him out this week. He's right up there with the top 3 or 4 guys.
And to add to Phil, if you're listening to this podcast and you have not subscribed or followed Phil Mickelson on social media,
You're missing
just
out.
stop what you're doing right now. Go to Twitter, go to Instagram, follow Phil Mickelson. I promise you, you will not regret it. The guy has completely changed my perspective on him in the past 6 months. His social media is unbelievable. He is hilarious. And the message he sent to me over the last 4 months is that he hits bombs. He just wants to hit bombs, and he does.
He is. He's still hitting the ball when he's one of the longest players on tour, if I remember correctly.
It's unbelievable. And it might be because he has calves like Adonis. And, that's – if you don't understand that, that means you aren't following Phil on Twitter. So go to Twitter and Instagram, follow Phil, and you'll understand what I'm saying. The guy does calf lifts with like 300 pounds. I mean, the guy's a freak. But back to the golf, I don't think he's worthy of a one-and-done pick unless you've picked Brooks and you've picked Dustin and you've picked DJ and you've picked Fleetwood and you've picked pretty much everybody. I think there's too much volatility with Phil, and I think a lot of people know how he doesn't like the USGA. I mean, we saw him last year where he – 4 or 6 or 7 putted, whatever he did, where he just slapped the ball up to the hole.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, I mean, that was, typical Phil. And I think that's in the back of his mind. I think he still struggles with that. And that's why I would stay away from Phil this week. But if he does win, it would not be surprising. And it would also be as cool as Tiger winning the Masters. I firmly believe that. His grandpa caddied at Pebble Beach. he learned golf or grew up something. He has a very strong connection to Pebble Beach, and to complete the career Grand Slam at Pebble Beach would be very, very fitting. I think he's deserving of the career Grand Slam. He's one of the best players of all time, whether you think it or not. The guy has been so consistent from 1992 to 2019. A guy of his stature not having a career Grand Slam would be a shame. And I think moving forward, I don't think he has a chance to win another U.S. Open. So I think this is his last chance.
High praise, Phil. On par, if he wins Pebble Beach with Tiger winning the Masters. Is that right?
It is right. I think they're two different storylines. I think Tiger is a comeback story. Obviously, a lot of turmoil or whatever you call it over the past 5 to 8 years for Tiger, where Phil, I think it would be a very fitting end to his career. He turns 50 next year, I think, on the senior tour, where I expect him to dominate. I also expect him to have a very strong presence on the PGA Tour still. But yes, I think if Phil wins this week, completes the career Grand Slam at Pebble Beach, I truly believe it is not quite to Tiger winning the Masters, but it is very, very close.
Okay. All right. We will see. And that being said, you mentioned Tiger. What's your prediction for him this week based on what you've seen? He had a great final round at the Memorial. Obviously, he's very familiar with Pebble Beach. He has the famous 15. I think it was a 15-shot victory where he just completely decimated the field. What are you feeling for him going into this week, and what's your prediction?
Well, I think the 15-shot victory is just that's what Tiger was doing back then, and he's a different Tiger than he was back then, and there's a different cast of players that he's playing against.
Definitely.
And that's not going to happen. It's just not possible. And if it does, you can whatever DM me or whatever, send me hate messages. I don't care. But I don't see him winning by 15. I'm not going to say he's not going to win. I've said for probably a week now, I think the safest bet would be a top 10 finish. I think he plays smart enough. He realizes, okay, I only have to hit driver on a couple holes. The first hole, I know he's not going to hit driver. The second hole was a par 5. It's converted to a par 4. It's very long. I would expect him to hit driver there. I would say there's probably, I don't know about 18. I'm not sure how far that tree is off the fairway, if he can get past the tree or not. It depends on the conditions and the wind. But I'm guessing Tiger hits at most 6 drivers a day, which definitely helps Tiger. And I think he knows how to play major championships. He knows how to play the U.S. Open, and it's what he did his whole career. He just is very patient, and he lets the other players make mistakes. And back to the PGA, the one player he referenced in interviews was Brooks Koepka, and it's the one person that I think he sees that has characteristics of Tiger, and that he's fearless. He doesn't shy away from the big moments, and if Brooks Koepka is in control, Brooks Koepka is in control, and no one's going to stop him. Where if it's coming down to the stretch, to the wire, and Tiger is head to head with Tommy Fleetwood, Tiger's winning. If Tiger's head to head with Dustin Johnson, I think Tiger's winning. Fowler, Mickelson, you name it. I think Tiger has the edge. But if it's Brooks Koepka, I think it's a coin flip.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think it's going to be very interesting this week with Tiger. I think you're going to see a lot of stingers. You're going to see a lot of good iron play. Hopefully, continue for him. I think he's fifth in proximity, as I just saw on the power rankings that came out. He was sixth, and Brooks was first. So I think it's going to kind of fit his game in the sense of how he can play, as you said, kind of a smart round of golf. And he's going to be patient. He's not going to go low the first 2 days as we become accustomed to. He's going to try to shoot, a couple under par, maybe on Thursday, maybe on Friday. Hopefully, stay in it, and then try to have a lower score going into Saturday and Sunday. So we'll see how difficult the course is. That's what I'm interested in. The U.S. Open always presents something that's more of a challenge, and personally, it's something I like to watch. So I hope the course is such that it does present a challenge to the golfers, and we can see some struggles, just like those of us that play kind of recreationally, and hopefully it's a great tournament.
So in our league, to our viewers, we just to be clear, we are in a one and done league. We split the entry fee, so we're on the same team. To our viewers, Eric is as a very conservative statement. He's a diehard fan of Tiger Woods. But I just want you to publicly address who are you cheering for this week? Because let's just say we pick Dustin Johnson. Who are you cheering for to win the U.S. Open next week?
Well, I don't think there's any issue with cheering for two guys at the start of the event. So my strategy will be such that I'm cheering for both guys to have a good, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But if it does come down to it on Sunday, and it just so happens that Dustin and Tiger are battling it out, I got to tell you, I'm going to have a tough time cheering for Dustin. But hopefully, I'm not put into that emotional position.
Yeah, I mean, geez, I mean, I would hate for that to be an issue for you. I mean, if that's the case, I might have to revoke part of your interest in the or your investment into the team. But yeah, I'm looking here on the power rankings, and I know we say we don't do any research or we don't have any like live research or stats, but I did pull up the power rankings, and to be honest, I am very, very surprised at the top 10. I mean, I'm not surprised that Brooks
Webb Simpson at 4 really surprises me.
I mean, Webb Simpson at number 4 is
a shocker.
I mean, wow. I mean, you know what? He's won the U.S. Open before. It was in California, but I think they might have this one wrong here. I think they might have this one wrong. And okay, I mean, one, Brooks Koepka, that's where he belongs. Rory McIlroy, number 2, I get it. Just had a great last 2 rounds. He's in good form. I can't argue with that. Patrick Cantlay, however you want to say it, number 3. I can see it, but
I can understand that.
my problem is Dustin Johnson. Okay, so Dustin Johnson has finished second in the first 2 majors this year. That is outside of Brooks Koepka. There's nobody better at majors. There's not. Brooks Koepka has finished second and first. Dustin Johnson has finished second and second. You can't do better than that. He's 7th in the power rankings.
Yeah, no, it's a shocker.
I don't understand. I mean, I can justify Koepka being ahead of Johnson. I can even justify Rory being ahead of Johnson. But I cannot justify Cantlay, who's finished top 10 of both majors. Respect to Cantlay. Simpson, garbage. He's not garbage, but he's not in the top 5. Phil, respect. Woods, I get it. But Johnson? And then Snedeker's behind Johnson? I mean, come on. Can we get a little respect for Dustin Johnson? But to be honest, I'm okay with Dustin Johnson being here. He's getting a little less respect, sort of under the radar. Maybe he's not as popular pick as we might have anticipated this week.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure you're confident that Joel Damon, one of my favorite players, is not playing this week. Is that correct? Because
Joel Damon.
I am seeing some information that he might be playing.
If he was an alternate, he could have gotten in. But according to my very non-extensive research, Joel Damon is not in the field for the 2019 U.S. Open.
Now, let me just make sure. I did just see something today where there were 6 players added to round out the U.S. Open field, and he may have been one of them. He was the first alternate loaded from the Columbus sectional, and he will make his debut weeks after missing the cut or finishing second, at the Wells Fargo Championship.
Well,
so
then you heard it here
like
first.
He's in. He's
Breaking news: the No Name Podcast. Joel Damon is making his debut in the 2019 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. Eric Froschauer couldn't be happier.
Kids, I'm telling you, if Joel Damon brings home the victory on Sunday, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I will be cheering for him. If he's up against Dustin Johnson, I'm all in on Joel Damon. No questions asked.
I can tell you this. If Joel Damon wins the U.S. Open, we have instantly become famous.
Oh, no doubt.
There's no doubt. Because there is not one podcast on this earth that has mentioned Joel Damon in a podcast. I guarantee it.
Him or Effie Barnrot. I think Effie Barnrot, another sleeper out there. He eats well. His fitness routine is impeccable. He's obviously, built for success, no pun intended. So very excited to see what he can bring to the beach this week. Just another guy who's prime for a major win.
Yeah, I hate to be doing research while airing this podcast, but man, this power ranking list is it's pretty powerful. I must say. I mean, Tommy Fleetwood, who is arguably a guy that could very well win this week, he's 20th on the power rankings, and you're like, oh, that can't be right. Well, you go down the list starting at 20. Justin Thomas, guy, I think he's kind of soft. I mean, local Kentuckian, both of us from Kentucky. The guy's got a wrist injury. I mean, sack up. It's your wrist, but whatever. Justin Rose, Hideki Matsuyama. The guy can't putt worth a lick, but he hits it straighter than an arrow. Jordan Spieth can't hit it on the planet, but he putts it. I mean, if Jordan Spieth and Hideki Matsuyama could combine their games, it would obliterate a comparison between them and Nadal in domination and on the front. I mean, it wouldn't even. I mean, it's Jordan Spieth is driving it so poorly, and yet over the past 2 to 3 months, he's competing. He's finishing in the top 10 week in and week out. I don't know how he does. Anyways, we digress. Graham McDowell playing really well. Sort of no one's really paying attention to him. Xander, Shane Lowry, that doesn't make any sense. Ricky Fowler, Adam Scott, Kuchar, Jason Day, Snedeker, Dustin Johnson, Woods, Mickelson, Simpson, Cantlay, McIlroy, Koepka. I mean, if these guys finish in the top 20, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, this list is just ridiculous.
Like you said, good list, but albeit it looks like there's some mix-ups maybe in here.
Oh, there's definitely mix-ups. I mean, Shane Lowry, the guy's made 4 cuts this year. I mean, let's not get a little ahead of ourselves. He played well last week. He finished second. Whatever. He's had 3 good weeks in a row. But this is the U.S. Open. This isn't the Canadian Open. Let's just be very clear. But besides, I'd say Webb Simpson, Shane Lowry, maybe Tommy Fleetwood, maybe being a little under the radar. I think everyone else is maybe Jordan Spieth might be a little underrated this week because he's playing pretty well. He's playing at a course he's won before. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting week. That's all there is to it. The conditions are going to be not cold, but not warm. It's going to be in the mid 60s, low 60s with a little bit of breeze. I think the Europeans are gonna do well this week, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting. I'm excited and can't wait for it to get started. Always fun when it's a major week. So,
No
what about
doubt.
the NHL? Have you been watching the NHL recently, or
You know
been
what?
into I know you're Sharks. Sorry.
Yeah. I moved to San Francisco about 2 months ago, and to say I was all in on the Sharks, I think would be an understatement. I was heavily invested in the Sharks, and I was really looking forward to going down there for the Stanley Cup playoffs to San Jose. It's about an hour and a half commute via train. And for those of you who haven't been to San Francisco or the Bay Area, the train at midnight, 1 a.m. isn't exactly the most desirable place to be. So I was like, you know what? I'll make the sacrifice to make it to Stanley Cup. Well, they lost conference finals to the Blues. So what? I got over it. But now we're on to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Blues, Bruins, and the Blues were in control. I mean, they had the cup in their hands. It was in St. Louis, Game 6. The cup was in the house, and they blew it. What happens next?
I think it's over. You lost 3-1 at home, or was that the final score? 3-1. Do I have that right?
5-2.
Sorry, 5-2.
Or no, 5-1. I think.
When I started watching, it was 3-1. I knew I just stopped watching at that point. They've taken it away from me at home. Definitely a letdown. The Bruins going back to Boston, all the Boston sports success over the past, how many years. I'm just not going to bet against them. I'm going to go with Boston to take it from them, maybe in a close game. I'm going to call 3 or 4-2. And I think Boston gets another championship, and St. Louis is going to be kept waiting. So that's my prediction.
Man, I'm not a Blues fan. I don't even know why they're called the Blues. They have a music note as a logo. I couldn't think of a weaker logo.
No, it's pretty pathetic.
I mean, let's just talk about their logo for a second. I mean, in all of sports, can you think of a logo that has less power than a music note?
Yeah, the only one that comes to mind, the New Orleans Pelicans is pretty rough.
Yeah, but if you put up a music note and you put up a pelican,
yeah,
the Pelican's going to win. I mean,
you got a good point. I mean, the only thing going for this music note, it does have some wings on it, but I'm not sure what's going on there. It's pretty weak.
It's very weak, but that's sort of irrelevant at this point. The Blues are a good team. They're in the finals.
No, they are a good team.
They've earned their spot in the finals, and they have that. This is I hope this podcast doesn't go public for this exact reason. They have a kid that has, I believe, cancer. I think it's terminal. He's a super fan, or she's a super fan, whatever it is. And I'm cheering for the Blues simply for that reason. I mean, he has sort of brought the Blues team together, and you could almost say they're playing for him or her. And I love stories like that where, and especially for the Blues, who have never won the Stanley Cup. I don't even know if they've ever been to the Stanley Cup, let alone win the Stanley Cup.
No, they never won. They've definitely never won. I don't think they've ever been, but definitely never won.
You know, the kid, I don't even know if a couple months ago he was even going to be able to go to any game. He's been to like 10 straight games. And, Boston, I think we can both agree on this. They do not. They're not desperate for a championship.
No, not at all.
Okay, so I think between the Red Sox and the Patriots and even the Bruins, they've won their fair share in the past 30 years. Let's spread the wealth. Let's let the Blues win. and all is good in the world.
Yeah, and I think you're right. It's such a great story to hear about all those type of storylines. I think back to guys like Tyler Trent. I'm a big Indiana fan, but seeing Tyler Trent, you couldn't help but root for kids or families that were going through just those awful scenarios. So yeah, definitely cheering for the Blues to win. I know if you be people at work who are Blues fans, but I just can't see it happening realistically. But we'll see.
We will. What is it? It's tomorrow night. Okay, we're getting to that time of year where there's actually nothing to watch on TV in terms of sports. And so tomorrow night we have no sports. And yes, there's baseball, but let's just be very clear before we go any further. We don't care about baseball. We're probably never going to talk about baseball unless it has to do with the Reds because that's our home team. And if the Reds are not in the playoffs or if they're not in the hunt,
Forget it.
just forget it. We don't care. There's no sports tomorrow. We've got an NHL game 7 Wednesday night, and we've got a game 6 Thursday night. And after that, we might not have any significant sporting event. Well, Women's World Cup, maybe we can discuss, but until August, college football. I mean, that's like 85 days away. I don't know if we're gonna have enough material to talk about things until then.
Yeah, college football can't get here soon enough. I think we'll have the Open this week to hold us over. Hopefully, we have some good content from live from the Open, maybe that we can discuss or something. Not exactly sure where we're going to go with this. This could invoke kind of the 1% that Cody was referencing at the beginning of the podcast, where we're talking about some other random happenings. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, as you said, kind of a desperate time of year. Nothing is on. Um, a lot of baseball to talk about, but like you said, if the Reds aren't in it, there might not be a lot of discussion.
I couldn't agree more. So,
Yeah.
yeah, for those of you who listened, which as of now, this is a private broadcast, nobody is listening. Thank you.
So hold on, I want before we leave, I want final prediction on U.S. Open champion.
It's Dustin Johnson. I mean, we've talked about it. Dustin Johnson is, in my opinion, he's the best player in the world with only one major. I think he got robbed of a major at Whistling Straits. That's another discussion. But I think he does everything very solid. He's very level-headed. It's his game fits the U.S. Open very well. More his mental game rather than his physical game. Not that his physical game is lacking, but he's just very level-headed. It would not surprise me if it came down to Brooks and Dustin again, coming down the stretch. If it was Brooks and DJ completely separated from the field, 1-2, that would not be surprising whatsoever to me. I'm going with DJ.
Okay, there you have it.
And I want to hear your prediction. And the one stipulation is it can't be Tiger Woods. He's not going to win.
Well, that's what I was going to say. In all fairness, but that being said, oh, man, it is tough to pick against Dustin Johnson. So, for purposes of our pool, I will cheer for him. Um, who will I cheer for? Who do I think would win? Um, Man, such a tough decision. Maybe I'll go Ricky Fowler. I think Ricky has long been awaiting a major win. Um, I don't have any fantastic reason to tell anyone why it would be this week, but maybe I'm just going to mention Ricky to cheer for him, and it'd definitely be a feel good story if none of our guys can put it together. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a fair pick. He's from California. It's the conditions are going to be tough, and he usually plays well in tough conditions. Personally, the guys that would listen to the power rankings, if any of those guys win, it would not surprise me one bit. But let's be very clear. If
but
we
look out
pick
for
Dustin,
Damon. Like I said, you got to look out for Damon.
You're right. We look out for Damon, Afi Barnrat. It's those guys. You know what? They're sort of on Dustin's and Brooks level. They could blow them out of the water. It could be Damon and Afi Barnrat, and then Dustin and Brooks, and then the rest of the field. I mean, it's just that's sort of kind of the level that they're playing on, and yeah, I mean, I hope you're right. I truly, for our notoriety and our publicity, I truly, I would cheer for Damon and even Afi Barnrat. I truly will, because if they win, you might see us on Jimmy Fallon in the next couple months.
I mean, Afi Barnett right now, I think he has to be enjoying some lobster rolls out by the course, and just really excited to see what his game plan going into this week is. So,
Do you think he'll be able to play the entire tournament without falling on his ass?
I don't know. He might need a golf cart. He might need the exception that Daly got not too long ago. It doesn't look like he could have a well balanced swing given the proportions of his body.
And if you're unsure of my reference, just go to YouTube, type in Afi Barnrat Falls Masters, and you'll understand what I'm referring to.
The biggest question is, did Sung Ho Choi Ho Sung? He did not get in. Did he? I don't think he got in.
Who are you even talking about?
Ho Sung Choi, the crazy swing guy.
No, that guy is he's no. There aren't special invites for the U.S. Open. He did not get in.
Very disappointing.
Yeah, I mean I hate to see it, really.
Well, yeah, that's all I've got. Any final thoughts?
No, I mean, like we said, this is our first podcast, season 1, episode 1. You know, could have been shit, could have been groundbreaking. Not sure. We'll take a listen tomorrow and hopefully improve moving forward. But for now, I think we're signing off. This is C-Mart, and we've got E-Money over there signing off.
Later.